What if you relocate to the perfect town in North Carolina only to find out that your commute is a nightmare, your kids' schools are overcrowded, and basic shopping is hard to come by? Before you bet your future on Kernersville, stay with me so we can show you what it's really like to live here. And stay to the end of this video because there's one hidden gem about Kernersville that might be the make or break factor for your next move. If this is your first time on the channel, make sure that you hit subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos or any videos that we do on the area throughout the Triad or anywhere else. We help people every day move to the Triad, whether it's 9 days, 90 days, or the next 3 years you're thinking about moving here, or even just you want to know what it's like to live in North Carolina or the Triad. My husband and I have lived here for over 20 years. So North Carolina and Kernersville is definitely home for us, and we love to help people just like you. So definitely DM me, text me, for sure hit subscribe. We'd love to chat with you. Below there is a link where you can set up a time where we can do a Zoom together and we can talk about what you're thinking about in your moving needs, North Carolina, what it's like living in the Triad, or if North Carolina is the best move for you. So definitely don't forget, hit the link below and set up a time where we can chat. One of the pros about living in Kernersville, North Carolina is that it is so centrally located. It is literally like 11.7 miles from Winston-Salem, as well as about 20 miles from Greensboro. So you're literally in the center of the Triad. The high point is as well probably about 10 miles from Kernersville. So you're so centrally located that if one person works in Winston-Salem or High Point or Greensboro, you can get to all those places and your commute time is a lot shorter. Another pro about living in Kernersville is that the cost of living is about 2.1% lower than living in Greensboro. Even though you're just a few minutes from Greensboro, literally, I think actually Guilford County line, because that's the county that Greensboro is in, is probably about 10 miles at the most, which is shocking because you can live so close to Greensboro, but yet your cost of living is a little bit less. So, you know, if you're looking at a home in Greensboro that might be $300,000 in Kernersville, you know, it's going to be $260,000, $270,000, you know, $280,000. So you are looking at the cost of living to be a little less. That also goes for groceries, utilities, water. It is a little bit less expensive when you're looking at your water bill in Kernersville versus Guilford County or Greensboro. It's a little bit more expensive. Every time I help somebody move from Greensboro to Kernersville or vice versa, we always chat about their utilities and their water bills and so on. And they always talk about how Greensboro water is a little bit more expensive than what they end up paying in Kernersville. So that's a huge thing. Rent is a little less expensive in Kernersville versus Greensboro as well. Now in Winston-Salem, some of the rent in Winston-Salem is probably a little higher, but for the most part, it could be pretty equal rent-wise. Secondly, if your job takes you, you know, where you have to fly a lot, living in Kernersville, you are approximately like 10, 12, 15 minutes from the airport. So you're super, super close. So if you fly a lot and you have to get to the airport quickly, it'll definitely make your commute time to the airport a lot shorter living in Kernersville. And that's a huge benefit. There is a lot of people that live here that fly a lot, like for their jobs. And that's one of the things that everyone talks about. And if you need to hop on an Uber, your Uber bill is going to be a lot less expensive because you're not paying to go that far. So that's a huge, huge benefit by living in Kernersville. Again, rent, cost of a home, utilities, groceries are a little cheaper here versus Greensboro, but we're not talking about anything major, but just a little cheaper because you are, the town is just overall living here, the cost of living is a little bit less. Another pro about living in Kernersville is the growth in economy. There are so many new companies coming in around Kernersville that if you live in Kernersville, your commute time is not going to be very much. There is commerce that is in Kernersville, which there's John Deere, Herbalife, FedEx is right next door. There's Amazon Hub that's very close. So we have a lot of commerce, but you can also get to all these major companies as well very quickly because the commute's not very far. FedEx, their big hub is from, if you were like in downtown Kernersville, it'd probably be 6 or 7 minutes. So if that's, where you want to get a job, it's great. Secondly, Kernersville has a huge amount of the medical facilities. If you're in the medical field, you can definitely find a job in Kernersville and your commute is going to be, again, very short. We also have a VA hospital that's a very large new VA hospital. So again, if you're in the medical field and want to work for the VA hospital, it'd be a great place to live because your commute is so slow. And I've helped a lot of people that work for the VA hospital move to the area to shorten their commute because it just made sense. And then the cost of living was similar or less than Winston-Salem or Greensboro. So overall, it was just like a win-win for all of them. Another pro about living in Kernersville is schools. We have private schools, we have quite a few public schools, and we also have, I guess you would call it like a magnet school, where it is more of like a private school, but it doesn't cost you any money, but you still get that private school feel. The Leadership Academy, which is a new school, I have helped many people move to the area just so that their kids can attend that school because it's so sought out and people love that school. We also have Bishop McGinnis, which is a private school, private high school, and it's a great school. And there's a lot of people that are moving in the area so that their kids can, the commute time for that school is a little less. So we've got those schools, and then we've got all the public schools. We aren't dealing with overcrowding yet in Kernersville, so you're not going to be dealing with a lot of that. The town is growing, definitely, but we're not really struggling with too many of those problems yet. So far, it's still a great place to live and put your kids in school because all the schools have pretty good rankings. Another pro about living in Kernersville is its small town charm, and it still has huge big city amenities. You can go downtown and there's historic buildings. It has a vibrant downtown feel where they've renovated some of the businesses and buildings. So there's coffee shops. We actually have some bars now. We have places you can eat, restaurants. We've got pretty nice restaurants too now that they keep opening. We've got some breweries, lots of activities. The chamber is very active in Kernersville. And so there's a ton of activity going on all year long. There's a botanical center, and a few weeks ago, they had a Twilight concert, and the chamber is always doing something. So you have a very vibrant and active downtown. But then we also have an area of shopping that's got, Targets and Walmart. So you have all your big box stores. So you're kind of not missing anything. So if you need to go to Lowe's Home Improvement, it's there. Del Taco just opened. We have a Whataburger is opening soon. We've got multiple Starbucks. There's not much that you're going to miss out on that you'll have to drive to Greensboro or Winston-Salem. We don't have a mall, but if you need clothes, there's a Kohl's. There's also a Staples. So we've got a little bit of everything here. So you don't need to leave Kernersville a lot, but again, if you do, you're close to everywhere. Another pro about living in Kernersville is that it is seen to be stable with people that live in the area. The crime rates are lower than Greensboro and in Winston-Salem. just overall, because people work in all the different areas, financially it's a little bit more stable, and just overall it's known to be a quiet area, and the area is not necessarily struggling by any means. Now we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about the cons. One of the cons about living in Kernersville is it doesn't have a thriving nightlife. There's not any, nightclubs or places to hang out in the evening, and we do not have huge nightlife. And it's one thing that I talk with about a lot of first-time home buyers that are young. They like Kernersville, but they're like, Winston-Salem and Greensboro are a little bit more fun for nightlife. So if that's kind of what you're looking for, Winston-Salem or Greensboro would probably be a better bet for you, because Kernersville is just a little quieter and just doesn't have the nightlife feel that some people are looking for. Another con about living in Kernersville is transportation. I think about this all the time, just because I'm originally from a big city. We had a lot of transportation. You didn't necessarily need a car because, being from San Francisco, there's so much public transportation that I noticed that that's a struggle anywhere in North Carolina. But in Kernersville, you are definitely dependent on a vehicle. And that's a con. It's definitely a con, because if you need public transportation to get to your job, Kernersville is not the best place for you, because you're not going to have it. You are going to be dependent on a car, or figuring out a way to get to Greensboro, Winston-Salem, or Highborn, or wherever you need to go, because Kernersville just doesn't have public transportation like that for you. Another con about living in Kernersville is because you are literally in between two major highways, Interstate 40, and now they changed the name to it. I think it's 421. You are going to deal with a little bit more congestion. So if there's any kind of hang up on the interstate or either way, or during what we call like a rush hour, which in most places is not really a rush hour, your commute time will be, longer. And because Kernersville is a smaller city, you could run into, at certain times of the day, you could run into more congestion, traffic, just because the town is just growing and we just don't have all the larger roads. They're kind of doing that right now. They're in the process of building up more roads for, as many people as we're having to move into the area. So that is a con, is that you will deal with a little bit more commute time if you're headed to Greensboro or Winston-Salem sometimes, or High Point on the highways and or in the city. Another con about living in Kernersville is that one of the pros that I was talking about, that the schools are not overcrowded, but that's also a con, because as the town and people move to the area, that is going to be a problem in the future if we don't create more schools in the area, is that it could become crowded. Schools could become crowded here. So that could be a con, that because we have so many people, moving into the area, that the schools eventually could be crowded. So I see that as, definitely it could be an issue. It looks like we have 1.7% additional people moving into the area yearly, and that could create a problem with overcrowded schools eventually. And so that's something to think about, that could happen down the road. The last con that we're going to talk about today is job availability locally. Now, we mentioned that there's tons of commerce and businesses right outside Kernersville, but unless you're in the medical field and want to work at the VA hospital or one of the, we have a big hospital here as well, Navant, there's not a huge amount of commerce right here. So if you're dependent on working right in Kernersville because of the lack of transportation, you will struggle with that. You will have to drive outside Kernersville to get to most jobs that people have in the area. So even if you got a job at FedEx, you're still going to have to drive there because it is right outside Kernersville. Amazon's outside. If you work at the airport, that's outside of Kernersville. So getting a job locally, there's just not a ton of commerce. I mean, you can get a job at, I think, the John Deere factory, or like I had mentioned, Herbalife. There's a big, facility here in Kernersville. But I mean, if you're looking for a job, and you want it locally and like right in Kernersville, it may not be the best place for you. And that's definitely a con, because again, most people that are living in Kernersville, they're living here because maybe one person works in Greensboro, or one person works in High Point, or one person works in Winston-Salem. It's a central location, so working outside the city is definitely a common thing. So that's definitely a con. Whether you're considering moving to Kernersville seriously, or anywhere in the Triad or North Carolina, we'd love to chat with you. Again, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we help people every day, whether it's you're thinking about moving 9 days out, 90 days out, or 5 years out. We'd still love to chat with you. So you can DM me, text, you can set up a meeting on the Zoom link below, and we'd love to talk with you. We help people every day decide whether or not Kernersville, North Carolina, or the Triad is the place that they want to call home.